Hi, welcome to Jazz avec moi, the podcast where we'll talk about everything from life, career, and entrepreneurship from a TCK perspective. My name is Michaela Mutoni, and I will be your host. Hello, beautiful people. So for this week, I'm speaking with Mo from the More Sibyl podcast. I met Mo online actually because we're part of the same podcasting group. And I was just like, wait, she does similar things to mine. She's been doing it for longer. So let me see what she's doing and if I can learn one thing or two from her. True story. But turns out Mo is actually a very interesting person, of course. She's a professor of pharmacy. She does research, not professor life. She's learned how to speak Korean as an adult and is interested in everything Korean culture. And of course, she has her own podcast. So I'm really excited to sit with her today, explore her definition of cultural curiosity, and learn on how she basically finds joy in the unexpected moment of life. So tune in. So hi Mo, thank you so much for being with me today. I'm really excited to chat with you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I like to start every show by having my guests introduce themselves. So please tell us, who is Motolani?
So first of all, thank you so much for bringing me on your show. I cannot wait to just share my story and also learn more about you as well.
Yeah.
My name is Mutoni. I go by Mo for short, and I describe myself as a Nigerian-born, US-educated, Korean-speaking, wandering intellectual. And I think those entities describe me to a perfect T. I grew up in Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria, to be precise. Spent the first 2 decades of my life there, and then I moved to the US 11 years ago. Sorry, in 2011. So you can probably add that up to find how old I can be. And I'm also a pharmacist by profession. I don't practice anymore. I do more research now in a college. And so I also have a podcast.
Yes.
And I'm very curious about, I describe myself as a cultural curious person.
Yes.
Because I think that within explorations of culture, we can get to know, about other people, and we tend to separate what we think about countries from what we think about the people, because people are people and countries are countries.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's my mission as a person, to kind of have conversations going, even things that we don't agree with. I do believe in, having open conversations about stuff. So that's me. I love people. I enjoy people to a certain extent before I get, drained out and I have to go into my hole of self-exploration and wondering why I said something or I forgot to say that other thing, which might happen after this podcast, by the way. I feel like, dang it, I didn't say that part, or I overshared, But that's just me.
Yeah. It's okay. We're here for the oversharing. And
thank you.
I was on your podcast. I've listened to like a few episodes, and I was just looking you've had it for a little bit over 2 years, right?
Yes.
And you have over 80 episodes.
93 actually.
Oh my God. How did you do it? It's like you almost do really like a podcast every week. So let's say a year is 52 weeks. I think you have like 40, 44, 45 per year.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned it, because I go on a creative break, which I had 2 mandates from December to April. So the show we don't have new episodes. So imagine if I had episodes from December to April, I probably have more than 90 something.
Oh my God.
There's so many stories to tell. Another thing about me, I'm a type AAA personality.
Yeah.
And when I want to do something, I obsess over it. And suppose I have quite an addictive personality. I don't do things in half measures, which you can see the good side and the bad side of that. I go all the way, or that kind of thing. So yeah, for me, podcasting was just an opportunity to talk to people that I'm inspired with and people that I don't necessarily agree with. So even
Yeah.
when you listen to my show, you can't even tell the ones I don't agree with because I still explore. We don't go on a shouting match like
Yeah,
Fox
I've
TV or
seen that.
CNN, like, you're wrong, No, I still feel like, from whatever angle anyone is telling a story, they come from a place of their limit, the limit of the understanding they have. And so I come with my own understanding and you come with your own understanding and see how we can improve our processes. So yes, I think there's so many people that I'm yet to talk to and
Yeah.
that inspires me to just keep, putting out new episodes. That's why I have 93 episodes. I would have more, but I need to rest because I have to mandate myself to rest and focus on my, my day job as well.
Yeah, of course. No,
Thank
it's
you.
so interesting. I like that. Like there are so many people to talk to, right? There are so many stories to
So
tell.
many.
Like
Yes,
and
yes.
yeah, there's that we can and we learn every day. Like I say it a lot that I do the podcast half for me.
Exactly, exactly.
Like if nobody was listening, whatever, I'll still do it.
Exactly. Because when you're talking to your guests, you're like, wow, I've learned a lot from my guests. Like
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like they've made me even sound smarter on the show and they
Mhm.
got future as far as knowledge, like things I don't know. I'm like, wow. So yes, I totally agree with you.
And were you always this curious about people and such, or did it start when you moved to the US?
No, I've always been this way. Like I got in trouble a lot as a kid. I was that kid that would ask about things people didn't want to talk about, you know.
Oh,
And I grew up in Nigeria, which is, for the lack of a better word, it wasn't a fun time to be female growing up in Nigeria. It's still not much, but a lot of these patriarchal lines are slowly eroding with people now having, especially women having like voices and all of that.
mm-hmm.
But I knew the culture I had that was
Yeah,
immersed in. I mean, there's so many good things about my culture as being Nigerian, but some things I realized that we just buried on that culture. Don't ask
yeah.
questions, just accept. I'm like, no, why is it that way? So
Mm-hmm.
I've always been that way. But I'll credit the US for giving me a voice. When
Mm,
you move from a country like Nigeria to the US, that's why people like me, it's like, wow, I have found my mission. Like, I found my people. I found, like, because the US kind of gives you a voice. I know we haven't really, and I would say this knowing that we still have a long way to go in
yeah,
the US, but compared to where I was coming from, like Nigeria now, it's a lot better here. Not that we shouldn't stop improving upon it, but for me, I could see just the opportunities that were in the US for me to have a voice. So
yeah,
if you listen to my podcast and you know that I'm Nigerian, you'd be like, Nigerian rather, you'd be like, how is she really Nigerian? Like, why is she talking about things like that?
yeah, yeah,
Just
yeah,
because
yeah,
I've always had that curiosity, but then I really didn't know how to. I mean, I was vocal about some things, but I knew I couldn't. There was only so much. There was only so much farther I could go with them. But being in the US, I found my voice, and
yeah.
and I'm taking that back to Nigeria as well, and also encouraging people, that are in Nigeria, like you need to tell your story, like it's okay, and I want to use myself as a model of openness and sharing processes and places of struggle, and that is
Yeah.
okay not to be okay at times, or it's okay to go through this or go through that kind of thing. Yeah.
I totally can relate to that. Rwandan culture is also very, I like to call it conservative.
Ultra.
Um,
Like
yeah,
ours. Yes, yes.
yeah, ultra
Yeah.
conservative. And you definitely don't talk about some things. And it's interesting you say it because when you were talking about how your personality is very much like, no, I want to question this and I want to talk about this. I can see it in your show. Like some of the topics that you talk about are very personal
Thank
and things
you.
that we don't normally talk about. So I really commend your courage because for me, it's like I'm scared to talk about it. It's like I'm like, yeah, I would like to talk about some things, but it's like I'm just so culturally used to not talking about it.
And
Because
it's
the
okay.
idea of me of
It's
like
okay.
going and like talking about it, I'm just like, oh my God.
No, it's
So it's
okay. I
very
didn't just wake up
courageous.
one day and be like, I want to talk about everything. I
Yeah,
had to slowly get rid of mine, like almost like at the expense of not being comfortable about some things, I've been able to
exactly.
find community for people and also for myself. And I know that culture of silence around some issues, they have not done anything to help us. And by I mean us, I mean like Africans and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and countries that are within those kind of definition that we give. So I think knowing that we can, these are also margin of weaknesses we can improve on,
For sure.
and knowing that little by little you build upon that, and then you finally get to that place where you're like, okay, see how far we come. But it's it's not something that's gonna change overnight.
Yeah, and then moments of really of vulnerability are the moments that people relate the most to,
Exactly,
right?
exactly,
Because that's real
exactly.
life. You know?
Exactly. So, like I said, oversharing, but this is just, I mean, if you listen to my episode, let me give you a personal example.
Yeah.
So, my husband and I, we've had pregnancy losses,
Yeah.
and being Nigerian, especially where you don't talk about things like that. And my mom, I remember when I told her, she was like, don't tell anybody yet. Like, have your kids before you talk about it. But I'm like, there's nobody around me that I haven't heard this on a podcast episode about a Nigerian struggle. Because, you
It's
know,
true.
pregnancy losses is bad, no matter what language you speak. But then there's also another additional layer of culture that is, on top of that it's
Yeah.
kind of hard for you to like process because there's a way we grieve, and there's a way where you're supposed to kind of quickly grieve over a pregnancy loss. But I'm like, no, it's not easy for me to forget. Like, I'm in
Yeah.
pain. I need somebody to talk to. So I released that episode. It was December of 2018. You
Mm.
have no idea just the emails I was getting. People I knew. I mean, I knew them. They're my friends. I see their photos on Facebook. They all look happy. What they've been going through, and I had no idea.
Yo.
Opening up, they were able to like see that, oh, she's got it together, but she's gone through that as well. I'm not
Mm.
alone. And to me, that just helped me a lot. Like, and even things that were never related to, pregnancy loss. I had a friend tell me she had schizophrenia and she's been struggling with that. And I was able to, do an episode with her, help her raise money to get back on her medication. So things like that. And I'm like,
Oh,
well, this
wow.
is why we share our stories, is
Yeah.
to help people set their own stories free. So I can do with just being uncomfortable, but there's a bigger mission out there that is beyond me. And that's what I want, to always remind myself, like, keep doing it. There's someone listening.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
especially someone that we can relate to, right? Because like
Yeah.
you were
Yeah.
saying, let's say if it's whether it's the question of like pregnancy or like any other diseases or any other challenges that you might be having.
Exactly.
But I
The
think it's
human
different.
process. Yeah. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, being human, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's
Mhm.
easier when you can relate to the person and you're like, oh, we come from the same background or we've gone through the same challenges. Like
Mhm,
it hits a
mhm.
little bit different, you
It
know?
does. It does. I
Yeah.
agree with
So,
you. I agree with
oh
you.
my God. So tell me, you came to the US to study, right?
Mhm.
How was that? Like, how was that adjustment?
Oh my gosh. I was that. I mean, so I read a lot as a child. I don't read as much as I used to.
Yeah.
And so I knew a little bit about the world around me, and I knew that I wanted to travel the world.
Yeah.
I knew I wasn't going to end up being in Nigeria, and I was hoping to just be in a place one day where I could travel the world.
Yeah.
So coming to the US, I had like a textbook knowledge. I think, we got a lot of US imported movies.
Yeah,
So
of
I knew
course.
about the stars. I had some favorite shows that I liked, Friends, The Office, and all of that. And so when I moved to the US, some of those things were still, good as far as that, people are people. I always believe people are people. I try
Mm-hmm.
to avoid, stereotypes and generalizations. So
Mm-hmm.
I've met, awesome people here, and I've met, not so awesome people. But you take what you can get from people, and then you you decide the ones that are worth keeping and the ones not worth keeping. But so far, I think the first thing for me was just the difference in the educational system. Whereas I came from
Mm.
a country where, remember that thing of not questioning stuff, it
Yeah.
still applies to our educational system. Where when you were in class in college, you weren't given a space to explore your ideas and also present your arguments in a way to kind of improve on the body of knowledge. It was like, no, whatever the professor said was what you had to like give back to them during the exam.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so there was not a lot of space for like, thinking and trying to create your own thought, because I believe that and this is one of the things I refuse to do now, even now that I work as a professor in a college. I don't give my students like, this is a fact. Like, I mean, there's some things that are principles, but I hand it over to them in such a way that I want them to improve on it, you know.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so when I came here, I felt like the dumbest person in my class, because I knew I was smart. I knew I came here, I had to write a GRE, I had to write a TOEFL, I had to put my statements of purpose together. I knew I was smart, but in my classroom, I didn't feel smart, because especially when my American
Yeah.
counterparts open their mouth and they're talking about stuff that was beyond what you read, and I'm like, how are they doing it? Because
Mm.
I focused on just what was provided to me, like text materials, but they did more than that. They drew argument from all over, from TV shows, from what was happening in the news, from historical context, and I had nothing.
Yeah.
I kept searching deep and deep, and I was coming up, short. And so I had to sit with myself, like, first of all, you need to empty yourself out. Like, you don't know anything.
Mm.
Now, how do you fill yourself back up? So I started, paying more attention. I was curious, I applied that same element of curiosity that I had with cultural stuff. I started watching the news more, listening to the other side, because a lot of what I did was, health policy, health economics. So learning more about, other countries as well, and trying to just see how I could build better arguments. Because in grad school, one of the ways you were graded was, in addition to just, being in class, you had to also discuss in class and also write papers.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I remember the phrase I opened my mouth to say something in class. It ended up being a counter argument to what my professor had said. The
Oh, okay.
Nigerian in me, I was like, okay, I'm going to be expelled today. I am done. Like, they're going to call my parents and I'm going to be done. And I remember just going to my professor. I was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to argue with you in class. And he was like, do you know I've been waiting for you to actually say something in class? I read your summaries. I know you're really smart, but I was hoping one day you were going to actually open your mouth and say something in class. We've had a fantastic argument. If you want to talk over it with coffee with me, let me know. And I was like,
What?
wow.
Yeah.
And that was that aha moment that I realized that I had been like the way I was taught in Nigeria was so different.
Yeah.
Whereas we pursue the theory and we're so good with the basic, the first principle stuff, our professors really challenge us enough to kind of, go off on our own and explore on our own and find out, how we can improve on that body of knowledge, which is one thing I credit the US system for, as far as especially graduate education. I cannot talk
Mm-hmm.
about, any other aspect of it because I didn't experience that. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. Like, it's true. I remember even myself, I did my undergrad in Canada
Okay.
and my master's in the US as well. And it's true, there is a big difference that even in the classroom, yeah, like people are just talking. And that's something I learned. And I told my little sister, I have a younger sister who's 7 years younger than me. She started her undergrad when I was already done with mine. But one thing I wish I had done looking back is really taken up the professors on their offers of, uh, let's go for coffee, come
Yeah.
see me in my office and
Mm,
talk to me and stuff like that. Because for me, like, I was just always so intimidated because there's
mm.
always that hierarchy, right? Of, oh, you're the professor,
Exactly. You're the professor. What
you're
do
the
I know?
almighty.
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly. And the way they taught us in Nigeria, and I'm being generalistic in my statement, I know that, but
Yeah.
these are not like, they're not far-fetched statements to make. It was fear-based
Mm.
learning. They will bark those orders at you, and the notes were just the same note. I would borrow notes from my seniors, and it was still the same thing. The professors, for the most part, will be regurgitating. So you didn't really need to be in class. You could just
Yeah.
read notes from the previous year, and that was it. So yeah, I definitely agree with you.
And did you always want to be a professor as well? Like, how did that come about?
Oh God, no. I have one of those career paths that if anybody were to be modeling me and be like, they want to be like me, I'll be like, why? No,
So tell me
no,
more.
no. I'm a can do person, and the good side about that is you can do most things, but the bad side of that is that you cannot do all things.
Yeah.
And so so I knew I wanted to be a pharmacist, and so that path was easy, very structured.
Yeah.
You go to pharmacy school, you get your degree, and then after pharmacy school, I knew I didn't want to do like what did they call it, like medical represent, like people that kind of sell drugs, like
When you go sell when you
yeah,
go
that
sell
kind of thing,
the
and start
drugs,
trying
yeah.
to argue why did you buy your drugs. I knew I wasn't gonna do that because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a good salesperson. It's probably something I haven't used before. So good luck trying to make me sell something I don't know anything about. So I worked for Chevron for a bit as a
Yeah.
medical, like in their clinical pharmacy setting. And
Mm-hmm.
then from there, I transitioned to one of the Harvard School of Public Health HIV clinics in Nigeria.
Yeah.
It's called PEPFAR Clinic. So there, I provided care in as a HIV consultant pharmacist to help with
Nice.
HIV and tuberculosis.
Mm-hmm.
But before I left pharmacy school, I remember it was my fourth year in pharmacy school, and one of my professors, Professor Dada, she looked at me and said, "You need to go get your PhD, girl." And I'm like,
Oh.
"No," because I see those postgrad students, just walking like zombies on our corridors, and they didn't look like they had a life. And this was
Yeah.
a country where you could end up bagging a PhD like in 20 years. Like it took maybe 10 to 20 years to bag one. And I really didn't want that to be my life. So I swiftly rejected it and I thought nothing about it. But so while I was working on my, so I moved from Chevron to, HIV, that HIV clinic, which was
Yeah.
totally different. Whereas in Chevron, the patients were very entitled and, they didn't have to pay for it. They got that as one of their benefits for being staff and employees of Chevron. But with the HIV clinic, it was a free clinic, so the drugs were provided by then under U.S. President Bush authority.
Mm-hmm.
They started the PEPFAR clinic, so those drugs were provided kind of to reduce the spread of HIV in Africa. So
Yeah.
all they had to do was to travel and just come pick up the drugs. So you had patients traveling from 5 hours, 6 hours away, getting on the morning bus to come pick up their drugs in the clinic. So you
Wow.
could always see that there was a different breed of patients you were working with. I really got to understand. But then I was kind of fresh out of school because it was like 2, 3 years after school. And I remember just being that arrogant pharmacist where I was, super smart, but I knew almost nothing about patient behavior. Like I didn't know. I mean, school had taught me a lot about what the drugs did to the body and what the body did to the drugs, but not enough about learning why patients didn't take their medications.
Mm.
And it was more so important because in HIV, if you're not more than 90% adherent to your medication, meaning 9 out of 10 times taking those medications, your viral load, which is like the virus spreading, was going
Mm-hmm.
to go high, and then your CD4, which is a measure for your immunity, was going to go down. And you could see that. So every time a patient comes into the clinic, every 3 or 6 months, we have them do their labs, and then the pharmacy was like the last point. And so we could tell a patient couldn't lie to us. If you ask if
Mm.
the
You would know
medication,
if they took it
we
or
would know
not.
because the blood never lies. And you
Yeah.
see patients who knew the gravity of their situation. They knew HIV was going to kill them, but then they weren't able to take their medications. And that really frustrated me because I'm like, it's just easy. Open your mouth and just
Just
take
take
them.
it.
But
Yeah.
I really didn't understand. Number one, this was way before they had the HART, which was the highly active antiretroviral drugs, where they could do like combination pills these days. Then it was single pills, so you could have patients taking like cocktails of medication, like 10 or 12, and these
Mm.
drugs had like serious side effects. Some of them it made them
Mm.
sleepy. So imagine a police officer sleeping on duty. Some of them
Yeah.
it gave them like rashes that was so visible. And this was also when the stigma of HIV was at a very peak in my country. So there was a lot of
Yeah.
stigma associated with it. So if you had a rash like that was just so visible in your face, people could suspect you had HIV. So I didn't know. I didn't think that was going to be problematic enough for the patient because I didn't know so much about patient behavior. And
Yeah.
so I thought to myself, oh my gosh, you suck. You need more skills. You need, to understand why. And, we had some patients just die because they really couldn't. They tried, they couldn't. And,
Yo.
just that frustration actually drove me to grad school to kind of learn more about patient behavior and, especially the social and economic aspect of adherence. That was the first paper I did while I was in school. So yeah, so that was what drove me to pharmacy school. Now, when I got to grad school, rather, so after my degree, I actually before I graduated from my PhD program, I realized that okay, what do I want to do? Do I want to go into academia or consult? While I was in grad school, I interned with biotech firm in Boston, and it was one of the best, professional experiences of my life then.
Yeah.
And I started noticing the idea of being working in big pharma. And we were working on rare diseases, trying to accelerate drug development for patients that otherwise wouldn't have any way to treat their medical conditions because these are diseases that are very few in numbers as far as the prevalence and all that. And so what I did, because I was so confused, and in grad school, especially when you're doing a PhD, your dissertation determines where you're going to end up. And so there's a
Mm.
way there's some topics you select or the way your methodology, your level of expertise, depending on where you're going to end up. So
Yeah.
because I was so confused, I turned my dissertation in such a way that I could sell it to anybody. So I had like a couple of interviews. So when I went for the farmer interview, they were like, wow, this is such an interesting topic. I can see why academia will like this. Why are you even applying to big pharma again? And I
uh,
tell them something really nice and so serious and it was truthful. I wasn't lying.
yeah.
Why I was considering them over academia. And then in the same mouth, with the same mouth, I'll go for my academia. I had one academia interview and they asked me, I can see why this might be suited for big pharma. Why are you applying to be a professor again? And then I'll find ways to say, you know what, for me, it's the acquisition of knowledge.
Yeah.
And, I just want to have that independence of in freedom in conducting research. So I just had different ways of just selling my myself.
Of course, yeah. But it's good. You kept the doors open, right?
I did.
You
And
gave
then guess
yourself
what
the
happened?
opportunity to
I got two
explore.
offers.
Oh
One is
no.
I know. I thought you could see right just my confusion, but I think I did a terrific job. I was so proud of myself.
Yeah, of course, it's great, but they
I
didn't make the
know.
choice for
They
you. Now
did
it's
it. They
like
did
you
it.
have to choose.
I had to choose. So I got one in pharma and I got one in academia. And it was like, what the heck? And I started running up and down like a lab rat. I called everybody that I knew loved me, my mentor, my mentor's mentors.
Yeah.
Everyone had, one opinion or the other. And, people care about you and they see, some of them, depending on how they know you, they can see certain things, they can only tend to see in certain ways. So I
Yeah.
had mixed reviews. Of course, there was some people that said, go for the farmer. It's really nice. You can do this and that. Others was like, no, go for the academia. I was like, all right, I need to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
But there was something someone told me. And just in case anyone is listening to this that might fall under that category, I was like, you know what? Whatever you choose, you're going to be fine. Because if you end up changing your mind, guess what? At least you know that you have a shot at the other one. You can always go back and reapply again. And so I just realized that it wasn't the end of the world.
That's so true. Yeah.
It's so true. Like you can always change your career path. And another thing was what's very important to you. I mean, if I were to be in Big Pharma today, I would still do great things. But for me, it boiled down to independence of research, which I think academia affords to give that to you. So I'm building my research lab. I'm exploring what matters to me. And I'm not constrained by, because if you work for a company, you're constrained by whatever asset they have,
Of course, yeah.
So whatever drugs they currently have in their portfolio, that's all you're going to be focusing on. A drug can be working on multiple sclerosis and you tell them, okay, actually I'm interested in HIV. You got the money to fund the clinical trials? No, I don't think so. So that was what it boiled down to me. And also my love for teaching. I do really enjoy teaching, especially graduate students, because I like to see that spark in their eyes when they finally get a concept. Or we're just having discussions in class. That's one of my highlights. As far as a higher educator. Yeah. So that's a long-winded way of answering your question.
No, that's awesome. One thing I do appreciate about graduate school, and I think that's probably what you see from the professor's perspective, is that when you go to graduate school, you're choosing to go.
That's it.
So nobody forced you. This is not undergrad that you need to do to have a decent job. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So people usually that have chosen to put themselves through this process again, they are a bit more dedicated and really interested in the topic, or at least they want to explore it. So I really enjoyed the graduate experience. It was very different.
I agree with you. My favorite kind of graduate students are those that they come back after getting some work experience.
Yes.
Because you know that it wasn't because of the money. If anything, they are taking a pay cut to come back to school. And I know that I don't like all the kind of grad students. Just my favorite ones are the ones that decided to come back.
Yeah.
One reason or the other. Yeah.
Yeah. So you like when they get it, like the spark. What do you not like, or what's hard?
I hope my boss doesn't listen to this. Well, even if he does, it's so if you work in a school, there's some policies and rules that you have to just follow because it makes everything nice. But I find that sometimes it kind of curbs the creativity. So I talked about preferring to teach graduate students. Now I also teach professionals, PharmD students. So PharmD is kind of like what you call the Bachelor of Pharmacy, but they're professional because they have a doctorate degree. In that you have to teach to the objectives, and there's a way you have to set the questions. They're usually multiple choice, and then you have to run statistics on the discriminant, basically the correlation between those that got it right, those that didn't get it right, why didn't they get it right? Is it a poor performing questions? There's so many some things that you have to. Yeah, it's just for me, it takes away the joy of teaching.
Yeah,
but we have to do, and I do see the importance. But you can imagine how for someone that I just want to get going, I find sometimes it hampers, the way I teach. But that's just about it. And sometimes, I haven't had a lot of bad experience with students, but I do know colleagues that have had, really, really horrible experiences with students, especially when it comes to evaluations. Sometimes under the guise of being anonymous, students really say some really, really mean things. I'm like, how am I supposed to? One of my friends had a student call her B, the B word that rhymes with witch. And it's like, how would you dare call your professor that? Like,
Wow, that's
is there something
crazy.
constructive in that? I would
No.
like for you, and I've gotten feedbacks to improve on some of my teaching methods, which I like, hearing from students, like giving me some really constructive remarks. So I don't think I'm all that fantastic when it comes to teaching because I'm still growing and learning. I'd like for you to tell me what I can do better. But when you put words like, the B word now, that wasn't addressed to me, or maybe just something that doesn't even really help because it's anonymous, like really though. So those are some of the things that I know because I have friends that we talk about this stuff
Of
as females,
course.
as females that are not even from here, like black females in academia, talking about just
Mm,
our path. A lot of them go through a lot, and you find out that there's little the schools can do because it seems like sometimes the balance of power is tilted towards the kid. And you hear kids sometimes tell their professors, "After I pay your salary," like I've heard
oh
my
my
friends
God.
tell me that they've heard that. Yeah, like afterwards I pay your salary. Like it's just the Nigerian in me just wants to
Slap them.
spank them or just do something. But you gotta keep your hands to yourself. So
Of
there's
course.
that problem.
Or like kiss them out, but you can't even do
So
that.
like
You
just
know?
catch me outside. I'm gonna remove this white coat and spank you or just catch me outside in the parking lot.
Oh my God. So let's talk a little bit about that, about being a Black woman in academia, because you're
Yeah.
not a lot, you know.
No, not many.
I work in tech where we're not a lot either. Do you think that, or do you feel like, do they have initiatives to help improve diversity in academia? Like, does that work? Or is it basically, dude, you just gotta do what you gotta do, figure it out?
First, I've always struggled with the word diversity in the
Me
sense that I
too.
know that
Okay, go on.
in the sense that I don't think it should just be like a token of color. I think it should be like a token of opinions and expertise.
Yeah, that's true.
Like we shouldn't just plug a hole because it doesn't have the other color from the rainbow.
Mm, mm.
And so as far as being the only black person, now would I want there to be another black person in my department? Because I'm also there's another black person in my department, and I hate having to see ourselves through colors. But she's more clinical, and I'm not clinical. Like I said, I don't practice pharmacy anymore.
Yeah.
But we have different paths, and we hardly interact except when we have meetings and all of that. But as far as my own, my line of job and all that, there's no one else like me. And I think it might help to kind of see some of because there's some things that happen at work that I'm like, is this person just being silly, or is it just they can't even just talk to me because they think I'm one angry black person, you
Mm.
know? And if you know me, you know that I'm like the last person to ever talk through the prism of race. Because one thing about being Nigerian is we don't see ourselves as black people. If anything, we just see ourselves as Nigerians, period. And Nigerians
Yeah.
are one of the proudest people you'll find on earth because that nationality of being Nigerian, it means a lot to us.
Yeah.
So I think that so I work in Oklahoma, by the way, and if you know anything about Oklahoma, it ain't quite a diverse state.
Mm.
Good luck to try to find diverse people. But I think a lot of argument has to be made to at least have some things in place that might encourage people from different places, walks of life, people from that have different expertise and all of that skills to be able to find it. Like you build a culture that shows that you're welcoming. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
because it's not. I don't think it's only something that applies to blacks. I think even Asians, we can even talk about that, or Hispanics as well. And
Yeah.
Oklahoma, like I said, isn't quite diverse in those areas. So it's like we want to be genuinely like you're creating programs that can actually help to include those kind of people. I think that kind of says more about a cultural place. I don't know if I answered your question. I feel like I really didn't.
No, you did. No, you
Okay.
did. I can relate to it, like, to some
Okay.
of it. I think that this is reminding me of you saying that you agree and you don't agree with some things on some things. When I first started moving, I also didn't identify, I guess, as black. Like I didn't think I was black because obviously I had always been Rwandan, you know.
Exactly.
And yeah, and then when you leave, yeah, when you leave your country, like when you leave Nigeria or like when we left Rwanda, yeah, I was Rwandan. I didn't know that I was black until I
Mm-hmm.
lived in a country where I was black, you know. But then I do find it also, you can't really dissociate from that either because it's like well, society imposes it on you. Like society doesn't really care. Like the culture that we live in, they don't really care that you're Nigerian.
True,
For
true.
most people, you're black, right? And so I think that comes with its own like set of consequences, I guess, or like its own set of reality, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think I left Rwanda in 2002. So that's almost, my
Oh
God,
my gosh, 18 years.
18 years. Yeah. And
Wow, your experience is old enough to vote actually.
yeah. That's so funny. Yeah. And then I lived in Germany and then in Canada and the US and Senegal as well. But
Okay, I need to know about yours, but we'll talk about yours when we talk about mine.
tomorrow. But anyways, yeah. So going through that, we're black, you know what I mean? And so I've become as a result of that, I've become very pro-black,
Yeah.
pro-African, but very like pro-black as well.
Yes, yes.
So I can but I can understand what you're saying. And then I do also respect the whole, I guess, diversity of thought because, for example, I'm on a new team where I am the only woman. Actually, I'm the only Black woman, but I mean, it's a small team. We're 5 people, but it's a very diverse team. I work with a French guy, with a Chinese guy, with a Turkish guy, and an American. And so, but just the fact that they're diverse, we're just different countries and where they're all over the world, that's already been very positive on my mental health because I know, first of all, we all have different accents on our phone calls, you know?
Yeah.
Like we're all like, like we just see life differently. We all immediately kind of accept that the world is global and we think about it like I'm part of a global team. So we're looking at it from a global perspective. So that's already just been a relief in itself from just, let's say, being on a team of just Canadian people from Montreal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I can relate to that as well. Yeah, it's nice to already have different people, even if, let's say, sometimes they might not be Black people, but at least some differences, you know?
I totally understand. And I agree with you. And I think you said something that I forgot to mention. When you said you were pro-Black, I swiftly realized, because I had to go through that moment of identity crisis when I moved here, like,
Yes.
but I'm Nigerian, I'm not Black, because, I don't know how it was for you in Rwanda, but in Nigeria growing up, a lot of what we saw in the movies, which was for a lot of us to get way to know more about American culture, whatever that was through the movies.
Yeah.
And then you always saw the Black person being depicted in a certain way. So I had, just this bias. I had this image about what a Black person was like, and it wasn't always positive.
Yeah.
So to be considered Black, it was like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm proudly African, no. It felt very offensive for someone to call me Black. But I swiftly realized that for us to be able to come here and be a part of like just enjoying the goodness and the bounty of this country, people had to pay for that.
Yeah.
And so I honor them because I don't know, my forefathers were never, enslaved, and we've never had to go through a lot of the injustices you see here, like, even the racial inequalities. And so for us to come here and coming into grad school was a different path for me because that's a path of privilege.
Yeah.
And leaving school without having to own anything in student loans or anything in student loans, that's another privilege I had. So I cannot turn a blind eye to all of that and be like, oh well, I can't be blind. No, like I have to acknowledge that, okay, I'm coming from a place of privilege right now. And so that's why for me, I feel like as Africans especially, we need to be more in solidarity with, African Americans or Blacks that are here. Like,
Yeah,
I want
for sure.
Blacks that are here. I don't know the right term, maybe African Americans, Caribbean Americans, but those that identify as Black, because I feel like there's so many things we can learn and teach each other.
Yeah.
But then maintaining this distance of, no, they are there and we are here, like it hasn't been helping. Because a classic example, if a cop were to stop you, he's not gonna care if you're from Africa.
They don't care. Yeah.
You're Black, so you must well start understanding more. So I've learned to listen more and, just hear, from them as per what their history means to them and why some things are done the way they are done. And why, because I really couldn't understand why everybody was too hung up on slavery. That was just my mentality. Like, just get over it. But it's not as easy as just saying get over it, because history is bound to repeat itself in so many ways. And so for me, yeah, and this is just a shout out to all my African friends here, is like, start having those conversations.
Yeah,
See
we
how you can
definitely
help,
do.
African Americans here have that sense of home. I've talked about this on in my show a lot. Like, we need to tell them about Africa so they can also find ways to visit. And I will encourage my African American friends to go to their ancestry, find out where you're from. As a matter of fact, one of my friends went and I found out he was from Ivory Coast. And guess what? He goes there every year, applied for citizenship, got it, doing
That's so
business in
cool.
Ivory Coast. Yeah. So we can model that, because a lot of them, they don't have home. Like, home is, they know their skin tells them a different story, which I think we Africans, we can help. Because I know I could pull up my village on Google Calendar and Google Maps and, pinpoint one of my villages in
Yeah.
Africa. A lot of them don't have that luxury. And I feel like we can definitely exchange best practices. And together, I think it's going to help the continent. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. No, it's true. We have to unlearn a lot of things. I definitely agree with you. Yeah, we have to unlearn a lot of things, and we have to learn a lot of new things as well, just to understand the context in which we live in, and I guess its weight, right? And then
Yes.
identify
Yes.
like what our part can be, what we can do.
Help. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. So now tell me, another thing I'm very curious about is your love for Korean culture.
Oh, that should be like
And then also,
podcast.
so answer that. And then after that, I think that leads to why your podcast is for Blacks and Asians. I thought that was also
and those who love them.
Yeah, and those who love them.
Which is like everybody. Hint, hint.
Mm-hmm.
So Korea. In Nigeria, I maybe heard about Korea maybe like twice or three times, maybe through their TVs, because they used to have this I forget the brand. It was a Korean TV brand we had then. And of course LG came into the market a lot. There was a time in the I think early 2000s up until 2011.
Mm-hmm.
LG was the rage, LG TVs, LG fridges, LG that and that. And so I had it up. I'm like, what is this country?
Yeah.
And fast forward to grad school, I had a colleague, shout out to Jan Hyun, and we took some classes together in EdPsych for statistics. And during one of the classes, because I missed some parts. You know how you kind of like, hey, can I borrow your note after class to kind of fill in the gaps that I missed?
Yeah.
And she gives me her note and scribbled somewhere on top was some things that looked like circles and sticks. I'm like, what the heck is that? She's like, that's my language. I'm like, is that how you guys write? Like, what does that mean? Can you read that? She's like, yeah, I understand it. This is how we write. I was like, huh. And I thought to myself, what a weird language.
Mm-hmm.
And fast forward to 3 years after, remember I said I had that internship in the biotech company in Boston.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we both got the internship. And which is kind of good because, many other schools, people from other schools applied for it, but it was just both of us that got that internship.
Mm.
We went to Boston. We said, okay, why not let's live together, because the cost of living was going to be very expensive.
Yeah.
And since the same program, it was just going to be nice to stay together. So we did. We had an apartment in JFK, UMass. And she had this rice cooker that would speak to you in Korean.
That's
Every
great.
day we go back from work, there was hot rice waiting for her. And she would put this rice on the table, set up the table, ever so elaborately. And it had like different side dishes. And I'm like, wait, what? You guys eat rice every day? She's like, yeah. I'm like, oh my gosh, like as a Nigerian, we eat rice every day, but we eat it in such a way that it makes you feel guilty. Almost like you have to like say Hail Mary every time you take a spoon of rice.
Yeah.
But here you were, this was, you've seen a lot of Koreans, this is maybe like the wrong way to say it, but they're not very chunky. Like they eat rice a lot, but they don't grow fat.
Yeah.
And here I am, struggling with my weight. I'm like, okay, no, I need to know more about your culture. And that's how I started easing into it. And so she would tell me about the food. And I noticed that for them, they kind of flipped the pyramid. Whereas in Nigeria, we ate rice like in bowls.
Yeah.
In top fools of them, they had like the rice was the side dish. It was never a main dish for them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of got me thinking like, so that was one. And then two, we'll talk about our family and our parents. And I realized that her mom and my mom were so similar, almost like they were like lost sisters somewhere.
Oh.
And so like we talked about the quirks our parents had, and I realized that, we're so alike. We just speak different languages.
Mm-hmm.
And then she introduced me to Korean drama, which if anyone is listening to this about getting into it, do not. 6 years later, and I'm still watching them. And and I realized that, wow, your culture is similar to mine. So,
Mhm.
they have that love for their families. They're very respectful, which, as a Nigerian, that's pretty big.
Yeah.
And they have this national pride. Like Koreans is so proud of their country.
Yeah.
Nauseating way for those that don't understand the history and just how much oppression they've had to go through when they were ruled by Imperial Japan.
Mm.
And also just celebrate through food. Food is very central to Korean culture. Like just celebrate through food. They're into music and dance, and which is
Yeah.
some of the things that were similar to my culture.
Yeah.
And so that was it. Then, but I wasn't interested in learning the language then because I was like, no, it never even crossed my mind because I wasn't just gonna do that. But I used to speak French a lot, like when I
Mm.
was younger. But then I lost all of that because I wasn't really interested in French culture. And I know you speak French, so this might come like a little bit, rubbing off on the wrong part.
That's all right.
I didn't have an interest in French culture. I didn't care about the people. It was just a language that was offered in school, and I just saw
Yeah.
that through university. But that was it. Once I stopped speaking it, I just lost it. Now I could read
Mm.
it, but that's just about it. But remember that I had all of those informal Korean cultural lessons through my roommate then,
Yeah.
and it didn't just materialize at a particular point. Almost like 3 years later, I was waiting to switch out my visa because I was on a student visa to a work visa. So I had to be 3 months away from. I couldn't do anything for 3 months until my
Mm.
visa was, changed and I could start working.
Yeah.
I remember going to bed that night. I have this Coursera. I don't know if you know about it. Coursera is like
Oh,
an
where you
app
learn, take
where you
courses.
learn stuff exactly. And I
Mm-hmm.
had taken some courses related to negotiation and data management some while back. And I got this email on my way to bed that said, courses recommended for you. Learn Korean 101. And I thought, oh, losers, who learns the language online? Go to a real school like a real person. And but I was like, Korean. Huh, okay. So I clicked on it. Remember, I was about going to bed.
Yeah.
And I, say, my phone, I can't see it very well. Let me just, prop up on my laptop. So I opened my laptop. And I'm not kidding. 1 hour later, I had mastered the alphabet.
No
And
way. Yeah.
I remember going to bed. I've never been able to recreate that moment ever again. I felt like a little kid that Christmas came too early for. Like I was so excited, like a new world of magic had opened.
Yeah, of
The
course.
language
Yeah.
learning does to you. Because I woke up the next day, I was like, wait, what happened last night? Can I really, really read Korean? So I opened my Korean book and I could read the words again. I was like,
That's
I didn't know
amazing.
what the words meant, by the way. I
Yeah.
could sound them phonetically. I could identify the characters and that was it for me. And like I said in the beginning, when I get obsessed about something, I go all the way. 6 months into that, I knocked off all the basic Korean. I could carry on conversations, what you call like a fifth grade level, sorry, kindergarten level. And because I learned by myself, I could only do more like inputs. When you think about language learning, there's input and output. So
Yeah.
I could only do things that, like for example, I was good at listening and I
Yeah.
was good at writing, but I wasn't good at speaking
Yeah, of
and
course.
I wasn't good at, writing effectively. And so when I was talking to Koreans, I had to think about the words, how they would look like on my book before saying them. But you can't have conversations like that
Yeah,
in
of
real life.
course.
So I realized that, I need to go to language school. So
Oh,
I started
wow.
going every Wednesday, and I've been doing that for about 3 years now. And now I'm in the what you call like an upper intermediate level,
Mm-hmm.
and which is one of the hardest because the the intermediate level is really where it feels like you're in the thick of things, and that's when a lot of people give up because it's like there's a lot coming at you.
Yeah, of course.
So don't give up because you've mastered a lot in the beginners level. This is the time to like apply them. And for me, because I learn a lot when I teach, I also teach Korean. I teach Korean in my language school. I teach the basic class, so that kind of helps me to
Oh,
reinforce
that's a
what
good
I
way to
learn.
practice. Mhm.
Exactly, exactly. And there's always a shock of awe that I have when I meet Koreans for the first time and I, speak their language. Then they look at me like, how
I
is she able to
know.
do that? I always loved
Yeah.
those moments. So yeah, that's the language for me. And beyond the language, I'm also very much interested in their culture. So I've written a lot about the economic development of Korea. I wrote a blog about that on Medium. And I think
Mm.
it's been read more than 6,000 times. I
Oh,
actually get
wow.
I get like maybe $5 every month as a royalty check in the mail through Medium because people keep reading the article. So I just talked about some of the things I noticed as far as learning about the Korean economy and the history. and what Nigeria can learn from it as far as good governance, prioritizing education. And so, yeah, and I have Korean families now. As a matter of fact, I'll be going to Korea for the first time this summer.
Yeah, that was my next question. Like, have you
Yes.
gone or when are you
No, not yet.
going?
Not yet. I bought my ticket already at the
That's
time of this
awesome.
recording, yes. And I'll be going this summer, and hopefully by then, Corona will be like a thing of the past. So, yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
have kids
know.
there,
Yeah.
I have family there. When I say kids, like students that I volunteered with here, like I have a school that I volunteer with international students. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to uniting with all of them. So, yeah,
My God, so
that's that.
exciting. And
Me
you're
too.
starting like the cooking thing, right? With your Korean
Yes.
friend or your Korean.
Yes. I find a lot of my friends because so like there's a way I approach culture. Like I don't come to a new culture like I know things. No, I want to explore, and I
Mm,
know that food is just one way because we all eat, right? To a degree, one degree, we all
yes.
like food, and
Mm-hmm.
so I want to give people an opportunity. I people, especially people like me, for you to be able to enter a Korean restaurant and be able to order something without feeling like you're being fake about it.
Yeah.
I had to struggle a lot when I was learning Korean. Like, how could I explain to people that I like Korean. Like, you're black, you're Nigerian. Like, you haven't even learned all the languages in Nigeria. You haven't finished learning French. Spanish is
Mm,
just, next door, and then you're going to Korea. So, you're going to learn Korean rather. So, I struggled with that feeling of just being like a fake. But I really credit my Korean friends and my Korean families for just they do like, you know what? We see that you're genuine. We see that you really love our country. You actually love Korea more than we love Korea. So it helped me a lot. They gave me a Korean name. As a matter of fact,
wow.
Sylvia, who was in my video, and I say, something name. She's one of my teachers as well. We get together. We try to do it weekly, but sometimes life happens, and we
Yeah, of
cut some
course.
stuff with practice speaking. And
Yeah.
so they see that genuineness in me, and they just regard me as one of them. So I'm very thankful because that opened the path for me to actually keep exploring. Otherwise, I probably have given up and be like, oh, I'm so fake about it. So yes, through my show, I also do cooking shows, and
Yeah.
we make Korean food, and sometimes do Korean karaoke, and just answer questions that people might be curious to know about Korea or Nigeria, or just about the podcast as a whole.
Yeah, that's awesome. No,
Thank
I
you.
really thought that was like a different take on it because
Thank
it's
you.
so unexpected, right?
Yes, it is.
Um, but I feel like that is you. Like now that I'm speaking to you,
Thank you.
you know,
I'm honored you think that, and you're right because I've been doing this many times, but I just didn't think I should do a live show about it because I get people together in my house. We cook a lot. We just talk about stuff around my brown table. My brown table has seen so many people from many countries just come over and then we talk about food.
yeah,
Kind of like the Anthony Bourdain. I just don't have the budget to travel around the world.
yeah, but there is beauty in it. There is
There
beauty
is, there
in
is, there
just
is. There is because it's
offering.
so many things you learn around the dinner table because you're so relaxed,
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
food, and people just want to talk about stuff.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah,
God. So what's
yeah.
your biggest lesson learned out of these last few years doing the podcast, working, doing your research, learning Korean?
But before I answer that, you had asked me a question about my show, why I call it Nigerian-born, like for blacks and Asians and those who love them. Well, blacks because it's just I think the correct term to talk about someone that is of Nigerian descent living in the US. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, I'm owning that label as a black person. And then finally, I guess, and then Asians just for that, like a homage to my the Korean part of me.
Yeah.
When I say Korean part of me, like the one that is just exploring the culture and learning the language, and just deeply vested in just how they have gotten to be one of the top giants in the world, and those who love them. So there's a third category of people that I make the podcast for. And who
Mm-hmm.
doesn't like black or Asian people? Like everybody, right? So it's a
Mm-hmm.
podcast for everybody. You can learn, and like you said, the stories I share are real, are from people who are currently living these issues or they have gone through them, and how they're able to just come back and or maybe just be bold about just what they've gone through. And I want to make the world a smaller place to remind us that there's so much more we have in common than what separates us. And if we don't tend to explore those, we might tend to start using labels to discriminate against people. And so that's the purpose of my show. It's just to show that we all have similar struggles sometimes.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, but unless we, you know, get down together, or in this case, connection over Zoom or be in the same room and talk about them,
Mm-hmm.
we would not be we'll be none the wiser about it.
It's
So
true.
now to your last question, I think for me is I think being intentional about what I do
Mm.
and finding out why I do what I do. And I'm someone that you don't tell me your ideas or don't tell me you have an idea and then you run away with it. It's like, no, don't even get me started. Don't set me on fire and then want to quench me. I'll rather, tell me those ideas in the first place. I want to just get up and do stuff. That's always me.
Mm.
And now I can see how that can be tiring sometimes, especially
Yeah.
because I can usually exhaust you with, let's go do that, let's go do that. But I found that in being intentional, because when I set out to do this podcast, really, I had no idea what I was getting myself into.
Mm-hmm.
And you said you're something you said earlier, like you do the podcast 50% for you, and I think that applied to me as well.
Yeah.
But I found a calling that is greater than and it's beyond me, and I find that really humbling to have a platform where people can come and say,
Yeah.
I trust you with my story. I don't take that for granted.
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
don't take that for granted as someone, like I mentioned, the case of a friend with schizophrenia. Like I was the first person outside of her family that knew about it. And she was willing to come on the show because she's seen just how vulnerable I have been about my own struggles, with body image, with pregnancy loss and infertility and things like that. So
Mm.
I don't take that for granted that people are so open and they wanna. So I want to keep being intentional. I mean, there's some things I haven't shared everything about myself, but I'm slowly trying to like show more sides to me.
Of
But the things
course.
I've shared so far, I didn't just share them because I'm not even famous from sharing them because that wasn't the plan in the first place.
Yeah.
It was just to let people know that this person you see in front of you, this person you think is great, there's so many things that I still struggle with. And
Mm.
and it's despite or in spite of that greatness that in spite of those issues that I'm still great, that kind of thing. Just to see the humanity in me and just things that I go through as well. So that's one, being intentional and also knowing why I do the things I do. So even in my job, so I as a professor of pharmacy, I also do research in lupus and cancer. And
Yeah.
a lot of what I do borders on quality of life and understanding the economic, clinical, and humanistic burden of having cancer and lupus.
Wow.
And so a lot of my personality you see on the show, it still shines in my research because I get to talk to patients, I get to talk to survivors as to how we can keep doing research that can actually translate to improve their quality of life and improve
Mm.
their health outcome. So the way I would interview someone of my guests is almost similar. I would talk to my patients when I do
That's
finish
awesome. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because the commonality there is me because I genuinely do care about how to fix some things or how to even understand some things better by listening to my patients and how we can keep developing policies or even research programs that can really, really, affect the quality of life. So I think those are like two top things I can think about. I'm gonna go to bed tonight banging my head because I didn't talk about something really. I didn't give you a smarter response, but for
It's
now on a Monday evening, that's the best you get out of me.
ah, I appreciate it. No, that was so deep. And
Thank you.
one thing I appreciate a lot, and it is very humbling. People are trusting you with their stories, right? Like, you're trusting that whatever I publish is gonna sound okay and not embarrass you or not show
Mhm.
you in a bad light and protect you from whatever and vice
Mhm.
versa, right? And another thing as well is people really do want you to, yeah, just talk about everyday life. For example, when I first started, because mine, I started it like 6 months ago. I was more thinking of doing it like about careers and showcasing different profiles, sort of like how you talked about what you do, right?
Mhm.
But I also found that people really just want to know, like, who are you? Like, what
Exactly.
drives you
Something as simple
as
as
a
that.
person, you
Yes,
know?
yes, yes.
And understand, yeah, what are your everyday problems? How are you living your life? Because we are looking for, it's really all about humanity. We are looking
That's
for
it.
that
That's it.
commonality.
It's going back to the basic because I think the way social media is right now, and I'm not gonna bash social media because it's because of that we're here today, and that was how I
Exactly.
found you. Is that I think it's catered to a particular kind of optics, like the good things, the
Yes,
great
the good.
things,
Mm-hmm.
the 100 picture you took from a different angle, but the same picture, but a different pose. But people want to know what's behind you, like, and that's why if you see the way my Instagram has grown a lot, as far as when I started, I wasn't really comfortable sharing stuff. But now I'm all about storytelling. I'm all about, just sticking, like just gone, like they're just going straight to the point and talking about things that I'm going through or something that I read somewhere or bringing people or sharing stories. So yes, I have evolved to see that there's a need for people to be real again. Gone
Mm.
are those days where we're photoshopping and polishing
Yeah.
stuff. No, let's be real again.
Yeah, that's very true.
Mhm.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
This question, it's one of my least favorite questions. I don't know. So if when Mo listens to this in 5 years,
Yes.
um, I want my, I want two things, two big things. I mean, apart from wishing the very best for all the people that love me and my families, and I hope that I'll be tenured by then,
Yes.
and by God's grace. And then, so basically expanding on my research. I recently got funded through the Department of Defense to do stuff for prostate cancer. So I want that to evolve into like a bigger, funding, much even bigger funding
Congrats.
mechanism. Yes, thank you. So I want to expand on my research, and then for my podcast, I want that to grow more. I feel like there's still more Black and there's still more Asians, and there's still more people that love them that are yet to know what the More Civil podcast is all
Yeah.
about. So I
Yeah.
want visibility. Now, I'm not power hungry. I'm not like fame hungry. There's so many things I could do to get that 5 minutes of fame, but I don't want that flash in the pan kind of Fame. I want to build a tribe. I want to build a community of people that can take what they see on the show and also replicate in their real lives. It
Yeah.
comes as a huge source of joy and reward to me when I have people tell me that, thank you for that you shared in your show. Because of that, I've been able to improve on this area. I've been able
Yeah.
to have that conversation with, for example, I talked about my dad. I grew up not having a good relationship with my dad, and that really affected me as a girl. And so,
Mm.
and the first time I ever talked to my dad for more than 5 minutes was on a podcast episode I did with him when I went to visit him in Nigeria.
Oh,
It was a
wow.
raw moment, and I shared all of that on the podcast. And I had friends reach out to me like, "Thank you, because of you, I've been able to talk to my dad and let him know I forgive him." So when people tell you things like that, you're like, even though I don't get like a lot of people tell me like rate my podcast high or
Yeah.
anything like that, but those deep qualitative feedback,
Yeah.
it makes my day. So for
Yeah.
anyone listening, let your podcaster know why you like that podcast. Go review them or just send them an email. Tell your friends about that podcast episode you listen to that changed your life. Because you have no idea. That's what keeps us going as podcasters.
Yeah, for sure.
So for those of us that are not backed by, Gimlet Media or those big studios that were just doing it because we want to really, make a change out there, let us know
Yeah.
why you love our podcast. So yeah, I would hope that more people would get the right people are attracted to my podcast, and I hope it gets to grow, and hopefully I can monetize it and make some money out of it. So yeah, those are my
Yeah.
goals.
Why not? You're offering value. So another thing is I worked for like a sales team for the past 3 years. And one
Yeah.
thing I have learned from being part of like a sales team is that and I'm bringing this up because of how you were saying you want your podcast to grow and more people to be reached.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about you being popular, quote
Mm-hmm.
unquote, but it's more like, no, you want more people to hear about the stories, right? Because
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
you are highlighting great stories and you're talking about topics that are real. So the more people that it reaches, the better. And for it to reach those people you do need to grow it, whether people share it, people comment, people do reviews, people, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like whatever way
Yes.
you find to
Yes.
extend your reach, the better, because then it will reach more people who do need to hear these messages that are being shared by the people you're talking to. I truly
Yeah.
believe that.
Thank you.
My God, and I wish you so much good luck and positive
Thank
vibes
you.
and
Thank
like
you,
with
Miss
your
Sarah.
research. And
Thank
I'm
you.
so excited I met you. I'm like,
Thank you. And thanks for when I saw your name, I was like, wait, she's Rwandan, she speaks French, lives in Canada, she's been to Germany. All right, I need to know this person because
yeah, and
your story just tells a lot of stories. Like I was like, no, we need to be friends on Instagram. And I'm
yeah,
glad
for
that we took that
sure.
conversation outside of Instagram here.
For sure, for sure. I can't wait to continue it.
Mm.
Any last words for today?
I still just want to say thank you. And thank you for your platform as well. I think you having your platform in French mostly, I think that caters to a lot of, especially from your perspective, as as an African that has transversed those different cultures. I think it's a critical gap you're filling in the podcast world. So I want to say kudos to you and
Oh,
thank you for your openness when you talk about stuff as well. And it's really I don't take it for granted. Like on a Monday evening, I was looking forward to talking to you because it's such an honor to be in your show, and so thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Mo, for being with me, for being honest, for being real and open and sharing everything about your life. And I really look forward to more conversations and collaboration and,
Thank you.
anything I can do to help you. I'm
Thank
down.
you. Thank you. And same here too. If you want to, I know we'll think of ways to explore. And guys, please go check out my podcast. It's called The More Civil Podcast. It's on iTunes, it's on Stitcher. It's on pretty much everywhere you can legally download podcasts.
I like that. And then you can legally download
podcast room. And yeah, I think finally will be today and moving forward. I think let's just stop, as much as possible, let's stop looking at countries that we've probably heard of in the news and looking at people from those countries and letting those general statements become the running themes when we see them. Like, get to know people, like genuinely get to know people, ask questions. I always say, like, rather than you just assuming, ask me questions. Now, I might not be able to answer your question if I think it's really stupid, but at least I'll rather you ask it than just make declarative sentence. So the challenge for your listeners and even those that are not your listeners that stumbled upon this episode is, I feel like the world, we're in danger of just losing that aspect of what it means to be human.
Yeah.
And that's because we've let a lot of things bias our opinions about people. And I'm not excluding myself from narrative. I still have some things I have to learn and unlearn. But I've seen that in exploring and asking, you're far at a better chance. You have a better chance of being rewarded in a good way, rather than you just being, pretentious or even assumptive about people's culture and all of that. So cultural curiosity is always the way. It's always the answer. And I think it's just the right answer to this world where everyone is just impatient and not nice and saying nasty things online and all of that. So
yes, thank you so much for sure. When you were commenting, I was like, did you watch Love is Blind?
I started watching it, but I couldn't finish it. Sorry. No, I couldn't finish it.
Oh my God. I might cut this out. I don't know yet. But the reason I'm bringing up Love is Blind is that there's this one couple.
Is it black and white?
Yeah, Lauren and the black and white couple, Lauren and Cameron, right? And I think the reason why their story blew up so much and why like everybody loves them is because they're sort of the living proof of that. You look at the humanity of people, we will always find a connection point. We will find a way to coexist together.
Exactly.
Because, for example, Lauren, she's a black woman, right? She says it, she's never dated a white guy. But then on this show where she's getting to know somebody for themselves without knowing if he's white, whatever, and they just connect deeply, I guess, on their values and how they see life and yada yada. She ends up with a white guy.
There you go.
So
there you go.
Yeah, so I felt that was that kind of echoed what you were basically saying. Like, let's just get to know each other on a humane level, and that will start healing the world a little bit.
I agree, because you fall in love, I think, with the soul, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And soul has no color, And I think for Lauren, and I think because I haven't finished, I've not even gone past the first episode because they blinded that, and I think that kind of shows you that, okay, love can really be blind as far as, missing somebody. You don't see their color, you don't see what they look like, but there's something in them, in you, that is calling out, to them and vice versa. So
yeah, for sure. Anyways, thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What did you think of the conversation that you just heard? Don't hesitate to leave us comments on the Facebook group or on the website jazavicmar.com. As the old adage goes, sharing is caring. So if you enjoyed it, please share it with your friends, like and subscribe. Until next time, keep striving, keep thriving, and keep shining.